Welcome to the Path Forward podcast. My name is Augie Ghilarducci and I'm the host. The podcast is sponsored by Second Opportunity, and we release a new episode every 2 weeks. The original intent was to sit live with all of our guests, and it hasn't worked out because we're talking with people from around the country. But today I have the privilege of introducing you to Tamara Springs, who joins me, and we are at our office in Fayetteville, Georgia. And coincidentally, she's fairly local to here. So it was a natural for her to come in so we could have this conversation. So welcome and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
I'd like to kind of start like we do with all of our guests and to say, tell us just a little bit about, your youth, growing up, school, those types of things you might have been interested in.
Sure. So I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. My parents were very supportive. They involved me in whatever I was interested in. I actually loved school, and it was my love of school that led me to pursue a career in education, actually.
Okay.
And so I went on to be a teacher at a pretty young age, and moved through the education career, working at various levels until I moved to Atlanta.
So what grades did you teach?
I taught fifth grade.
Okay.
I taught computers in an after-school program at the Urban League to high schoolers. I actually taught college at one point.
Really?
Mhm.
What can I ask what subject you taught in college?
Yeah, I taught a master's degree program in leadership for educators working on their administrative degree. So I taught a leadership course at Baker University.
Terrific. And I think that I saw somewhere, maybe on your LinkedIn or some profile, that you did some work with leadership, right? As far as some of what you were doing professionally.
Yes, I was a principal at one point, and then I went on to become an area superintendent and executive director, where I was responsible for training school principals.
There you go. That's terrific. And you moved to Atlanta at some point from
Yes,
Wichita.
yes.
And what were you doing when you first arrived in Atlanta?
So I was actually recruited from Wichita Public Schools to Atlanta Public Schools
Okay.
in 2004, and I came here to serve in a similar capacity. I'd been an area superintendent in Wichita, came here to Atlanta to do a similar role called an executive director, where I was responsible for training principals and leadership cultivation here in the Atlanta Public Schools.
Big difference, obviously, because of the size of the school district as compared to Wichita, I would assume.
Actually, they were actually similar sizes. Wichita is the largest city in Kansas and had the largest school district. So the actual size of Metro Atlanta and Wichita Public Schools was about the same. We both served
Really?
about 60,000 kids.
I want to dig in a little more, but I want to come back and talk about education just in general and the value of education, whether a person is on the inside or has never been involved with the justice system. So while you were in Atlanta, some things got sideways and it created some issues. Could you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure, I'll give you just a brief. There was a cheating scandal that erupted in around 2010, and unfortunately, despite the fact that none of the principals that I supervised were charged, I did have three teachers that changed answers on a test out of almost close to 2,000 in my region. As a result, I was convicted of a RICO and charged and with a initially given a 20-year prison sentence.
Something happened to reduce your sentence?
Yes, the judge came back later, and said that, he thought it was, too extreme. In reality, he'd used the wrong sentencing guidelines, but that's fine. And it was reduced to 10 years, but I actually served 16 months, of, a 10-year sentence.
And you're released to the Atlanta area.
Yes, I came home on the 2nd of February, 2020. I just celebrated my 5-year anniversary.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So you come out, you've probably, like many of us, have to, I don't know if the word reinvent is correct, but certainly career looks different, challenges that go along with having a conviction. So what path did you put yourself on at that point?
So I was on the inside, I actually taught reentry, and it gave me a sense of the great need that people had to prepare for life after incarceration while they were on the inside. And so I came up with some innovative ideas around like pathways that people could consider for careers. I started doing an inventory of like businesses and companies that engaged in second chance hiring. And I developed a real interest in that. So when I came home, there was this burning desire to kind of figure out what I could do to help people rebuild their lives, because it's when you go to prison, you lose everything, right? There's you lose whatever you built before, whatever you no matter how long you're there, when you come home, it no longer exists. So it's literally starting over again. And so I came home. I went back to some nonprofit work, initially working at an organization called Gideon's Promise, which trains public defenders. I had worked there before being incarcerated as a consultant, and I was really fortunate. They hired me full time uh, when I came back home. They offered me a job immediately to resume. But I left there in 2023 to work for the largest reentry organization in America called Center for Employment Opportunities. And in that work now, I'm really privileged to be able to help people create a pathway to their futures by identifying, you know, individuals who want to move into leadership roles, management roles, and they work in a internship program that we have called Emerging Leaders, which we serve individuals all across the country in all of our offices. I think we have 31 cities that we work in, but it's my opportunity to really help people, craft a pathway and figure out, what's life look like after prison and how can you rebuild and still, kind of take the whatever pain you've gone through and turn that into a purpose. Because that's what I've had to do. I've had to take pain and, funnel a purpose. And I think that there's, when you can find work that's meaningful, that helps other people, but that also like helps heal the brokenness that I don't care, how long people were in prison. When you come home from prison, there is trauma associated with that. And so being in a position now where I'm able to help support people in that way has been really meaningful for me.
The organization, again, for those that are watching this, the organization is called what?
Center for Employment
Center
Opportunities.
for, and you say they're in 31.
We're in 31 cities across 12 states.
For those that are releasing to those 12 states or near those 31 cities, this is something that a resource that you certainly should be aware of, right? I mean,
Absolutely, yes. From California to New York, and a couple places in between. I think we've got Oklahoma, Tulsa, and a Oklahoma City office. We've got one here in Atlanta. But if you can get to a city where there's that kind of support, I mean, there are other organizations that do
sure.
similar work. But I'm just very familiar with CEO's work, and what I think people can expect to receive is like immediate work. That's one of the things the CEO is known for is, you can come home on a Tuesday, they start you working. It's not glamorous work, but it's, you get daily pay. And from that, you get the support to find, uh, you know, permanent employment because you start off doing transitional work. But, we have relationships with employers across the country who are open to second chance hiring. And, we work to create pathways and provide people with the support they need with like resume development and things like that to get them into employment. And then we connect with other resources because, just getting people a job is not a panacea, right? People deal with mental health issues. There's homelessness. There's all kinds of issues that are collateral consequences in coming home from prison. And so, CEOs really skilled at having individuals who connect with other organizations that provide supportive services that can help people meet immediate needs and create some stability once they come home.
I have the opportunity to speak often, and one of the things that I mention is that some in society think that somebody's incarcerated, they get out, as long as we get them a job, they'll be fine. And that's not the truth. That's, in fact, that's far from the truth.
That's right.
Um, I point out that while we're incarcerated, we don't we don't routinely do anything that keeps our mind engaged for 8 straight hours.
No.
When I first got out, I got a job. I was sitting at a computer. That was my job. So there was no physical activity that went along with that. And at the end of the day, I was absolutely exhausted because 2 things. I wasn't used to concentrating for that period of time.
Mm.
Plus, I didn't get to lay down for my nap right before 4 o'clock count. And then the second thing was the computer screen, right? I mean, there's a physical effect to staring at a computer.
Yeah.
And so I was getting headaches, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that, but I bring that up that one of the phrases that I borrowed from somebody, the work muscle, and it's really important that we develop. And so I believe that as painful as it might be to say or to hear that if we're going to get a really great job, it's probably better if it's not our first job
Yeah.
because we need to relearn how to communicate with others outside of an incarcerated
Yeah.
environment. We need to become familiar depending on the length of our sentence, but really you don't have to be sentenced very long for technology to change
Exactly.
because it's turning over all the time.
Yeah.
So we need to get familiar with technology.
Yeah.
We need to just get familiar with the cadence of going to work and all those other things that go along with it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes getting the type of work you're talking about just to get back in the swing of things and having daily pay is great because you need to get all these things and to wait 2 weeks for a paycheck, 2 weeks sometimes can feel like an eternity.
Yeah.
So that's really terrific stuff that you do, helping with resumes and those are necessities. We have our second opportunity program that, we're fortunate enough, we're in 21 states now, and it's really about, providing information on what goes on a resume.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, we still have to craft that resume to present to an employer.
Yeah.
But and then it's understanding how we're going to explain the gap in our resume
Yeah.
that, I had a 13-year gap. So how do I explain that I hadn't worked during that period of time? And so helping people to develop those skills to go through the interview obviously is very important.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned about having internships.
Yeah.
So let's start from a general standpoint. What is an internship? And then specifically, what sort of internship do you offer through your organization?
So an internship is an opportunity to learn, essentially learn while you earn. So you're paid, a salary, and you're given training, but you're also given on the job experiences. So you might come in and shadow someone working in an office for a while. You would learn what they do. Let's say, for example, they're an intake specialist in an office. You would learn the role of the intake specialist. Then you would begin to perform the role, to build some level of comfort working in that space. What I have found is that a lot of people who come to our organization come with a desire to do something and give back. A lot of times folks who feel like they've done some harms to others, you know, they found this sense of like redemption and a desire to change, and they want to be surrounded by people who, they can, uplift and support. And so, by giving individuals opportunities to work in the functional roles at our organization, they learn the skill set so they can go on and maybe be a case managers in another organization, or, provide peer support services, to individuals who are dealing with recovery based issues. And so it really is more like a training ground. We just happen to compensate. And it's a 12-week program. Um, and once they're done, our goal is to get them placed in a career pathway and an opportunity that is aligned with their training. And so they get like a set of like general skills, communication, and problem solving. But in addition to that, we also attend to things like imposter syndrome, because that's something that we see that people come home with, feeling like they're not good enough, and they're not prepared enough. And so, training individuals and helping people develop the capacity to tell the voices in their head that tell them they shouldn't be doing what the work they're doing, or they don't deserve it, to be quiet, because those things can derail you if you listen to those voices.
I think that reestablishing self-esteem and self-confidence is critical,
Yeah,
but I also think it's very difficult.
it is.
Um, I say that when I went away, I really I think I was comfortable socially,
Hmm.
and somehow during the time I was away, I developed social anxiety.
Yeah.
And so I can talk in front of a group of 500 and be comfortable standing there talking about this type of thing, but put me in a room with 6 or 8 people, and I've been out 7 years now,
Yeah.
and I still feel out of place, and I'm probably gonna be the last person to engage in the
Mhm.
conversation. And what we need to as employers, what we need to realize is that we shouldn't read anything into that. In speaking with employers, I talk about I might be the last one to speak, and you might read it that I'm not interested, think I'm better than everybody else. Nothing could be further from the truth. I haven't found that level of comfort that I'm ready to engage in the conversation. So the idea of developing some of those skills and working through some of those things in an internship, I mean, that seems like the perfect time to
Yeah.
to do that. As people go through the internship, are they, and I really don't know, but do you give them regular feedback, or is it just feedback at the end of the 12 weeks?
No, they get continuous feedback from their managers. They have a weekly one-on-one with their managers, and then they meet with us for training twice a week. And so, we're constantly, observing and giving feedback both on growth, because, one of the things I recognize is that, once you've come home from prison, your self-esteem is very low. Um, giving people recognition, giving them their flowers actually helps to improve, their sense of self-worth. So we spend a lot of time celebrating one another. Every time we come together, uh, twice a week, we start off, talking about the successes, things we've learned, challenges we've overcome, because there's, something about that sense of community. And there's a lot of research behind that. When people are a part of a community that is supportive in a reentry space, it actually increases their outcomes to be successful. And so we work really hard to create this supportive community that provides the uplifting that people need to rebuild themselves, because prison breaks people down. That's what it's designed to do, right? And so if you don't, when you come home, if you don't have that supportive community, you've got to find it and you've got to tap into it, because it will be part of the healing journey. I think that people, regardless of how long they were inside, have to go through. And it is a long recovery process. The things you described, I still deal with. I was nervous coming in here today. My hands were trembling. And I'm a seasoned public speaker who spoke frequently before I was incarcerated. But it's been really hard for me to even reclaim my own voice and to be able to sit here today because of the things I've experienced. But I recognize that through my experiences, I can perhaps um, help other people overcome their experiences. So that pushes me and propels me to just, tell my story, talk about the avenues that, I've seen people be successful in, and, provide people almost like I consider myself an usher, right? I'm ushering people into, looking at opportunities and helping them to rebuild their lives. So that fuels my purpose.
One of the jobs I had while I was away, I spent 5 years as the clerk in the RDAP program, which is the Federal Prison Drug Program. And I was a staff clerk. And really, what I did is there's all the groups that go on every day, Monday through Friday in the mornings. RDAP was like 7:30 until lunchtime,
Hmm.
and then the afternoon people had a job. Um, but the a lot of what I would do is help them with the book work, because they had to turn in all these module books in order. Because the value of the RDAP is that if you successfully complete, you get up to a year off your sentence,
Hmm.
and that's obviously meaningful. So I'd run regular tutoring groups and that type of thing. But what you just said kind of jumped out at me, because it is a community. The RDAP it's a separate housing unit,
Hmm.
and the only ones allowed to live in there are either those that are in the program,
Hmm.
they are waiting to enter the program, they've already been approved and they're just waiting for the next group to start, or they've completed the program. And there were some guys that I knew from the compound that you'd look at them and you'd say, they'll never make it through this 10-month program. They can't even tuck in their shirt. They're so into their own thing. And those were the guys I saw most quickly jumped into the pool, because I think they enjoyed having an opportunity,
Hmm.
even though it was being forced upon them. But I think they enjoyed having an opportunity to be part of a community, and
Absolutely.
it took away all pretenses because they had to be a part of the community. So it's not like they were voluntarily. But I think that I watched, again, I did this for 5 years, hundreds of guys over those 5 years, and I watched a lot of people that kind of found their voice when they went into RDAP, because they start to realize that there's good in being part of a community.
Hmm.
And so, put you on the spot, but if you're working with somebody that just comes into recently released,
Hmm.
um, as you see, and as I see, and on the inside they see that some people don't have a real network, a healthy network to go back to. In fact, many people have a network that's really bad for them,
Yeah.
and they end up back with the same group doing the same things, and it creates the same outcome. So if somebody comes to you and they don't have a network, how can you help and help to support that? What can you help to do in that regard?
So I think one of the things we aim to do is become that network of support, right? But the other thing we encourage people to do is, if you can't change the circumstances around you, change the circumstances around you. We have people that move to different areas, neighborhoods. They get connected with organizations that have like housing support, maybe in another city, because you're absolutely right. If I, go back to the same area, same neighborhood, same circumstances that led to my incarceration, the likelihood of me returning to that is relatively high. But if I know of a different pathway and I can get support to get into that pathway and get into that circle of support in that system of a new opportunity, then people have at least a half a chance of being able to thrive. And so, it's not uncommon. One of the people in my cohort now, it's from Philadelphia, but once he was released, he moved all the way across the country to California with a friend, right? He found someone that was invested in his success. And all people really need is to, have at least one person who believes in them, one person who believes that, they are worthy, because we're all worthy of a second chance. But sometimes you need somebody to tell you that and for you to actually believe it yourself. And so if you can find that person or that organization and they're able to, facilitate you relocating and providing support in that way, then you may have to do that in order to start a brand new path for yourself.
So right now I picture men and women on the inside looking at their tablet, nodding their head. When you were talking about some people released and they go back to the same group because they don't believe there's an alternative, and it turns out badly, and they're sitting in jail or prison again because of that. Um, I mentioned that, first of all, I was able to find a group because if you look, you can find them, and especially if you're anywhere near um, a halfway house.
Mm-hmm.
There generally are groups in that area. But shortly after I got out, we had a group, People's Liberty Program in Chicago, I was invited to, and it was one Saturday a month, but it was a 3/4 of a day, and we would have 20, 25 people show up, men and women, all different circumstances, different lengths of sentence, and so on and so forth, but all seeking to be in a space where people could relate
Mm-hmm.
to what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody might have been coming to this group for a year, and somebody just got out last week and they're having problems even connecting with their family on any sort of a level.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things I think are very worthwhile. I would have stayed with that group much longer, except the pandemic came and it shut everything down. But
Mm-hmm.
I was going there for probably 2 years.
Yeah.
I would go one Saturday a month. The other
Can I
thing,
add one other thing?
sure,
I mean, I think one of the things that I think you learn to be really resourceful when you're incarcerated, but there are resources outside that you have access to. While you may not have access to an internet inside, there are public libraries that are free, right? Inside those libraries are computers, and if you go to any computer and just type in go into Google and type in reentry services, every city and state has
yeah.
some kind of reentry system or process now. That hasn't always been the case. And so there are entities that get funding to provide these kinds of services. And sometimes it's just learning about how far you are from a location. The other thing I would encourage anybody to do on the inside is begin to advocate for yourself with, your counselors, right? Because there is supposed to be a reentry plan for everyone that's designed before they come home, right? Now, the quality of those reentry plans,
Right.
may vary from location to location, but if you know what you need to do when you come home, and you don't have to have a plan in your head, you just need to have a request in your mouth, right? And say, listen, I need a place to go, I need a housing, I need a supportive community, I need to be in a place where I can maintain my sobriety, and ask for the resources and the connections, because there are people whose job it is to find those connections and help you
Yep.
with that. But there's also opportunities online. You can Google for free and figure out a pathway in the event, that you don't have the information when you first come home.
If we go back on the network for a minute, one of the things um, that I was introduced to probably my last 2 years was the organization called Toastmasters. So Toastmasters is an organization that helps with public speaking, but it's really it's a super organization, and they love formerly incarcerated people. And in fact, they love currently incarcerated people because Toastmasters will come into your facility.
I didn't know
It
that.
absolutely. So if
Wow.
if you reach out, or if you get your case manager or a director of education or whatever it might be to contact Toastmasters, and there's like 14,000 Toastmasters organizations worldwide. But if they reach out and say, we'd like you to come in here and start a Toastmasters program, it's likely that can be done. And that's what happened. So I was in Duluth, Minnesota. There was a guy that would drive up every week from Minneapolis. That's like a 2.5 hour drive.
Wow.
But he was really committed to the population, loved working with us. He was a great guy. In fact, when I got out, I was able to hook up with him on LinkedIn and still keep in contact. But on the outside, it's a network of business people
Mhm.
or people that are in society. Some might be a hiring manager for a company. Some might have just started a company 2 years ago or 2 months ago. But it's a great opportunity to meet people outside of what our normal circle would be when we
Mhm.
just walk out of prison.
Mhm.
So Toastmasters, I think, is one of those organizations that they do this because, I mean, it's all volunteer. Everybody's there because they want to be there, and incredibly
Oh,
supportive of
yeah.
people that have been incarcerated. I'd like to go back and from a more general standpoint. So draw upon your experience
Mhm.
as a teacher that became an executive director of an entire district and that type of thing. But I think, and what the numbers show us is that for people that are returning from incarceration, education is an
Yeah.
enormous predictor
Mm.
of success.
Mhm.
And so, can we talk about education and
Sure.
some of the different pathways that are available for somebody who's right now watching this sitting inside a county jail
Yeah.
or a prison, and they're thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get out. I never had really a good job. I did what I did, and had some kind of a job. But can we talk about education and,
Sure.
and the role that you advise the people that come and see you, how they can get on that path?
Yeah. So I'll tell you just one of the things that I introduced when I worked in the reentry program at Lee Arundel State Prison. I remembered that in the state of Georgia, and this is other states have similar programs, but they had something called the Hope Scholarship, which was an opportunity to get uh, certified for free in 17 high need fields, things like welding and CDL truck driving, um, nurse assistant, um, logistics management.
Mhm.
And of the 17 fields, there were about two or three that require state licensing, which if you have a felony on your record, the likelihood of being, issued a state license is pretty low. But 14 of them were wide open to people with felony convictions. And I would encourage people because there's a misnomer that in order to get the certification, you have to have a high school diploma. We know from the research that the majority of people in prison don't have a high school diploma. There's a direct correlation between people, who've not, successfully completed high school and incarceration. But you do not have to have a high school diploma to get a certificate at a technical college. And a lot of people don't know that. And if you can, get into one of those programs that's one of the high need programs where they need workers immediately, it doesn't cost you a dime. I think the other thing that people push college and college. I'm a former educator. I will tell you, college isn't for everybody, and more employers are now looking for skills. Like, what's the skill set that you have? And so there's lots of like courses you can take online to get certification because there are things that maybe you are really good at, like um, human resources, you like working with people, you like helping people, you can get certified through a program called Coursera. It's online. It's our organization provides Coursera certificates and access to them for free. If you come to CEO, you can sign up for Coursera. It doesn't cost you. Otherwise, it costs you about $45. But there are a lot of programs that offer. I know Ladies of Hope Ministries, which is a nonprofit for reentry. They provide free courses through Coursera that you can sign up and take. So you can get certifications that you can put on your resume that will help create a pathway
Mhm.
for you, even if you don't have the high school diploma, even if you don't have the college. If you've got the skill set and you can do the job, you can navigate into a new pathway in a career and build a new life for yourself, using some of those opportunities. And there are schools, I know in Georgia particularly, Life University has a college program for folks on the inside. They actually offer associate's degree courses. You can sign up. So you might have to find out, which universities may be willing to come in or are already coming in, because sometimes there are people who gatekeep access to those programs and you don't even know that they're available. So asking the questions about, what kind of courses are available on the inside from a university, or, looking at, like I said, technical college certifications, which you don't need a high school diploma for.
College isn't, you said it's not for everybody, and I think we all agree on that, but it's not what it used to be.
Mhm.
It used to be bricks and mortar, 4 years. I've got to show up in a classroom and there's going to be a professor or a teacher in the front of the room. And, now it's online.
Oh, yeah.
And I am a big proponent of these certificate programs.
Mhm.
So as an example, a person can get a certificate from a college or university in the field of logistics with 6 courses
Yeah.
that can be done certainly within the course of a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could be working at the same time, taking these courses with that certificate in logistics. They can walk through the front door of Amazon or one of the thousands of logistics companies
Yeah.
nationwide and get a terrific job that pays well, that provides benefits. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
And then a commercial for the Path Forward podcast. If you'll go back and look at episode 9, that's referring to some of the programs that we were just talking about. It's the welding programs, it's the CNC machining programs, and that was with we went through a community college, and we walked through and did a tour
Okay.
of what was available. And these are all good paying, in demand jobs.
Yep.
They are fair chance employers that hire people with backgrounds all day long,
Yep.
and they're available to us. So even with that information that you just gave out, a technical college, somebody can get out tomorrow and borrow their friend's phone and go to
Yeah.
Google and type in technical colleges near me, knowing that they don't need a high school diploma in order to enroll in those programs.
That's right.
And then I want to back up on one other thing. So the circumstances are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
When we release, we don't have a high school diploma, or we do, but the circumstances are what they are.
Yeah.
But I'd like to talk just for a minute about the value of high school diploma or high school equivalency, right?
Yeah.
My job the entire time, in addition to the 5-year clerk thing, was to work in education. And in the Fed system, they have no shortage of dollars. And so there's classrooms on both sides of the hall. One was for ESL, English as second language, and then 3 were for actual GED. And they were the plexiglass, so you could see everybody in there, and you'd see the same thing every day. You'd see a group of 2 or 3 sitting in the front paying attention, books open, clearly engaged. In the right corner in the back, you'd see a group of guys playing cards or dominoes or something. And in the left corner, you see a group of guys that were using their books as pillows, and they would take a nap during when they should be in the GED. And the Fed system is written to say that you have to put 500 hours. You have to be in the classroom for 500 hours. It doesn't say what you have to do in the classroom. You just have to sign your name, walk in, and sit there, and you get credit for those hours.
Wow.
But I would talk. Some of these guys were my friends, and many of them were. And they would say, I can get the same job with a GED as I can get without. And even if I agree with that, the reality of it is that most employers require high school equivalency to get into any sort of management or supervisory position.
Yeah.
And so I guess all that to say, if you have the time, if you're sitting in prison and you have a couple of years to go, it's probably worth seriously investing your time to get your GED. And I will say this, I found prison to be filled with really smart guys that were willing to help, and we can find tutors. And tutors are our peers. We don't need staff to tutor us in math. We can find somebody that we're locked up with that's really good in math and would be glad to do it. And so I think that that's one of the things that, while I know there's certainly value for somebody that says, I don't have enough time, or I just never liked school, pardon me, was really not good at it. I just want to become a welder and I'll be a great welder. That's all terrific. But for those that still aren't sure of what their path is going to be, I guess I'm just saying I want to encourage them not to shut the door on education. And that's got to start with high school equivalency.
No, you're absolutely right. And I actually was a dorm tutor. Like I tutored individuals working on their GEDs. Here's the reality. It is hard to even be a manager at McDonald's without a high school diploma or GED. I actually volunteered and taught GED classes for a year once before I was incarcerated, actually. And if you do have the opportunity to take it, get it under your belt, because I worked next door to a local fish house here called Captain D's. The manager had been there for 12 years. She knew that I was a GED instructor and asked me if she could get her GED. Our program served like 18 to 24-year-olds at the time. She was older because her job was at risk. She'd been there for 12 years, but because she didn't have a high school diploma, she was not eligible for a promotion at a company that she had experience with. They were changing the rules of the game. And, a high school diploma or a GED, you're right. A lot of folks can't even get in the entry level. And so if you don't have it, by all means, sign up, get it, take the courses, take it seriously, because it is one of the gatekeepers in society, unfortunately.
Yep. And again, I want to emphasize that there are many individuals that are sitting around you that would be more than happy to help you
Hmm.
to master a topic so that you're ready to test on that.
Yep.
More than happy to do that. And it's just about, kind of humbling ourselves to say, hey, I really never got math, but I really want to get my GED. Can we do something? And it will bring it will bring joy to them to be able to help somebody, to know that they're helping somebody to move forward with their life upon release.
Yeah. Wanda in Bainbridge, Georgia got her GED because I used M&Ms to teach her fractions. Um, and she moved around a lot as a kid and never learned fractions in elementary school. She learned them as an adult through some food we got from the commissary. So find somebody who's, got the skills, even if they, are one of the GED instructors during the day, they may be willing to help you in the dorm at night, right?
Absolutely.
Because, they're people who really are there and want to be of service, even in a place that can be, dark at times. There's still people there who have a heart to serve and support.
So I mean, one of the things that I absolutely believe is that many times there's many dark days while we're incarcerated.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I'll speak in the first person. I felt like this is never going to end. I'll never get my life back in order. I'll never have opportunity. And I found the best way, and I think if you talk to the guys that I did time with, I found the best way to kind of break out of that funk was to just help somebody.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what it is, just help somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the new guy coming onto the block that has the deer in the headlights look, and you just need to shake his hand and tell him everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Here's how it works around here. So, and I say that to say, I think people are waiting to help.
Hmm.
If we say, is anybody here in this room good at math that can help me with this?
Yeah.
I think that you'll be overwhelmed with how many people will actually want to help you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this has been terrific. We went all over the road on
I
it, but
know.
this has been terrific. I so much appreciate you being here. So what I'm
Thank
going to ask you
you.
to do to close on this
Sure.
is take 2, 3 minutes and just look at the camera and talk to the men and women on the inside. Just whatever's on your heart, whatever you want to say. Because remember, we're all around the country with this
Sure.
podcast, and many of the ones that are watching this are having a dark day.
Sure.
And so just leave a message, please.
Okay. I think what I would say to anybody is that um, there's life after. There are opportunities that are out there. Um, I encourage you to find your circle of support, um, even if it's a new circle that you have to create. Um, Tap into organizations, reentry services, programs that can help you rebuild your life, but start that on the inside. Um, the biggest voice that you have is your own, in thinking about what it is that you want for your life and your future. If you've got children, you've got families, there are people that are counting on you to come home and pick up where you left off. And in order for you to do that, you've got to have a plan. My dad always said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So start thinking now about what it is that you need, and begin to identify the resources that can help you carve a pathway. Whether it's getting finishing your education, deciding which program that you might need to tap into to maintain your sobriety or your support system, whatever that path looks like. Begin to define it, because if you can see it up here, change begins on the inside. It begins on the inside with your mind, with your heart, and then with the support that you put around you, because there are people, organizations, and entities that will help you to achieve the goals that you set. And don't be afraid. It takes courage to start all over again, but you've got that courage inside of you. And one day at a time, just take a step. Celebrate your success. Take the next step. Celebrate your success. And by the time you turn around and look behind you, you'll realize how much further up the road that you've come, just by making small incremental changes in your life and taking a chance on things that maybe you didn't even think you could do, or that you should do because you are worthy. People make mistakes, people make decisions, but nobody should have their future and their outcome decided based on the worst thing that they've ever done. That's something Sister Helen Prejean said. You know, nobody should be judged on the worst mistake or the worst decision that they ever made in their lives. And there is life after, and I encourage you to pursue it and to recognize that in a car, there's a rearview mirror and there's a back window. The rearview mirror is really small. And I think it's really small because that's how much time you should spend looking back at your life and the mistakes that you may have made. Look in the front window. It's larger, it's open, and it's wide. And if you can focus on the future through the front and not spend a whole lot of time beating yourself up, regretting your mistakes, life has happened, it's been written, and it is what it is. But it does not have to determine your future. Stop looking in the rearview mirror, start looking out the front window of your future.
So this has been the Path Forward podcast. Tamara Springs has been our guest. She's terrific. And I appreciate you on the inside that have taken the time to watch this. We will continue to bring these types of conversations to you. And I hope that at the end of this session, at the end of watching this episode, that your day is just a little bit better thinking about some of the topics that we covered. We look forward to you joining us again, hopefully at the next time that an episode appears on your tablet. Thank you.